Elias sat near the entrance of the cave, staring at the glowing crystals. His mind was a storm of thoughts. A few hours ago, he was a pilot fighting for survival. Now he was in a hidden alien refuge, with a princess asking him to help take down one of the most feared warlords in the galaxy. It was insane. But if what Salvera said was true, that the Dominion was planning to attack Earth, then this wasn't just her war. It was humanity's war too. Salvera stood near a table, checking her weapons. A sleek energy rifle, a curved blade, and small metallic discs that Elias assumed were grenades. She moved with the grace of a warrior, her golden eyes focused. "You're thinking too much, human," she said without looking at him. Elias smirked. "Yeah. And what do you suggest?" She turned to him. "Stop hesitating. Decide whether you will fight or not." Elias sighed. "I already decided. I'm in." Salvera nodded approvingly. "Good. Then we move soon. The Dominion will not stop hunting me." As if on cue, a deep mechanical growl echoed through the cave. Elias and Salvera froze. Then the sound of heavy footsteps. "They found us," Salvera whispered. Elias grabbed his pistol and peeked outside. His blood ran cold. 3 Dominion hunters stood at the entrance of the cave. They were tall, armored figures with reptilian features, their bodies covered in thick, black plating. Their glowing red eyes scanned the area, and each one carried a plasma rifle. "They don't look friendly," Elias muttered. "They are not," Salvera said. "They are elite trackers. If they are here, more will come." One of the hunters stepped forward and activated a communication device. His deep, guttural voice echoed in the cave. "Salvera, surrender. You cannot run forever." Salvera tightened her grip on her blade. "We need to take them out fast." Elias checked his pistol. Only a few shots left. "I'm open to ideas." Salvera's eyes gleamed. "Follow my lead." She moved like a shadow, circling around the hunters. Elias took position behind a rock, aiming carefully. The lead hunter growled. "This is your last." Salvera struck first. She leaped from the shadows, blade slicing through the nearest hunter's neck. Sparks and blood flew as the creature collapsed. Before the others could react, Elias fired, his shot hitting the second hunter's rifle, causing it to explode. The third hunter roared and charged at Elias. Elias barely dodged as a massive claw swiped past his face. He fired again, but the hunter's armor was too strong. Then, Salvera appeared behind the hunter, driving her blade into its spine. The creature let out a final snarl before falling lifeless. Silence filled the cave. Elias exhaled. "Well, that was fun." Salvera didn't smile. "More will come. We need to leave." Elias nodded, gripping his pistol. The hunt wasn't over yet. Captain Elias Vance had been in bad situations before, but this was the worst. His starfighter spun out of control, flames bursting from its engines as it plunged toward the surface of the jungle moon. His squadron was gone, shot down in an ambush. The distress beacon blinked red. No signal. No help was coming. The ship hit the ground hard, metal screeching as it tore through the thick alien forest. Elias's head slammed against the controls, and then darkness. When he woke, pain shot through his body. Blood dripped down his forehead. His right arm felt broken, and his leg was pinned under a heavy piece of debris. His suit's HUD flickered weakly, warning him of internal bleeding. If the crash didn't kill him, the creatures of this world might. Something moved in the trees. Elias reached for his pistol, but before he could aim, a shadow leaped toward him. A massive beast, 4 legs, black fur, glowing red eyes. It growled, sharp teeth dripping with saliva. It lunged. Then, a blur of silver. A tall figure in sleek armor moved with lightning speed, slicing through the air with a curved energy blade. The beast howled as the weapon cut deep, then collapsed to the ground. Elias blinked. The figure turned toward him, removing its helmet. A woman, but not human. Her skin was a deep violet, her eyes golden and glowing in the dim light. Long, dark hair flowed behind her. She was beautiful, but there was strength in her expression. She studied him for a moment before speaking in a smooth, commanding voice. "You are human." Elias coughed, spitting out blood. "Yeah. And you just saved my ass." She stepped closer, crouching beside him. "You are injured. Can you stand?" Elias tried, but pain shot through his body, and he fell back with a groan. "Not happening." The alien woman sighed and sheathed her blade. Then, without warning, she lifted the debris pinning his leg as if it weighed nothing. Elias gasped as she reached down and pulled him onto her shoulder. "Hey, wait. Who are you?" he asked, barely able to keep up. She walked forward, carrying him as if he were weightless. "I am Salvera, princess of the Zithari Empire. And you, human, owe me your life." Elias chuckled weakly. "Great. I crash on an unknown moon, get attacked by a monster, and now I owe a favor to an alien princess. This just keeps getting better." Salvera didn't smile. Instead, she looked ahead, her voice turning serious. "Your arrival has changed everything. And soon, you will understand why." As the jungle closed around them, Elias knew one thing for certain. His fight wasn't over yet. It had just begun. The transport rumbled to a stop inside the Dominion war camp. Elias and Salvera remained hidden beneath it, holding their breath as heavy boots stomped nearby. The Dominion soldiers spoke in their guttural language, their deep voices echoing through the metal walls. Elias whispered, "I don't suppose you speak their language." Salvera nodded slightly. "They are ordering a security check. We must move. Now." The moment the guards turned away, they slipped out from under the transport and ducked behind a stack of metal crates. Elias's heart pounded. The Dominion was everywhere, guards patrolling the corridors, massive war machines being prepared for battle. The Salvera tapped his arm and pointed toward a maintenance tunnel entrance near the back of the hangar. "That leads underground. The power core is there." Elias exhaled. "All right. Let's move." They stayed low, using the shadows to avoid detection. Salvera moved like a ghost, silent and precise. Elias wasn't as smooth, but years of military training helped him stay undetected. They reached the tunnel entrance, but two Dominion guards stood in front of it, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. Elias whispered, "We need a distraction." Salvera smirked. "Leave it to me." Before Elias could protest, she pulled a small metallic disc from her belt and tossed it toward a stack of fuel canisters. A second later, boom! The explosion rocked the hangar. Fire and smoke filled the air as alarms blared. The Dominion soldiers shouted in confusion, rushing toward the blast site. The two guards at the tunnel entrance turned to look, just long enough for Salvera to strike. She lunged forward, her blade slicing through one guard's throat before he could react. Elias fired his silenced rifle, taking down the second with a clean headshot. "Nice work," Elias muttered. "No time for praise," Salvera said. "Move." They slipped into the maintenance tunnel, the door sliding shut behind them. Underground, the core chamber. The tunnel was dark and narrow, the air filled with the hum of energy flowing beneath the base. Red emergency lights flashed, warning of the explosion above. Elias checked his rifle. "How much farther?" Salvera pointed ahead, just beyond this corridor. They reached a massive door at the end of the tunnel. Salvera pressed her palm against the control panel. The door slid open, revealing a vast chamber filled with glowing blue energy conduits. At the center stood the power core, a towering structure pulsing with raw energy. Elias whistled. "That's a lot bigger than I expected." Salvera pulled out a set of explosive charges. "We set these around the core, then get out before it detonates." Elias nodded. Simple enough. But before they could move, a deep voice echoed through the chamber. You should not have come here. They turned. Standing in the doorway was a towering Dominion warrior, his black armor gleaming. Zalvera's eyes narrowed. We have company. Elias tightened his grip on his rifle. The real fight was about to begin. Elias and Zalvera sprinted through the maintenance tunnel, the heat of the explosion roaring behind them. The Dominion facility was collapsing, metal beams groaning and walls cracking under the pressure. Smoke filled the air, making it harder to breathe. Elias coughed. Tell me there's a ship waiting outside. Zalvera kept running. I told you, one problem at a time. The tunnel shook violently. Pieces of the ceiling crumbled, barely missing them. Sparks burst from broken cables, lighting up the dark passage. Then, up ahead, the exit. A massive metal door stood between them and freedom. The control panel beside it blinked red. Locked. Elias groaned. Of course. Zalvera didn't slow down. She pulled a small device from her belt and slammed it onto the panel. It sparked and buzzed as it tried to override the system. 020. Elias glanced behind them. Fire was rushing through the tunnel like a hungry beast. They had seconds before they were burned alive. The door beeped. Unlocked. The Zalvera kicked it open, and they burst outside into the cold night air. The sky was filled with chaos. Dominion warships hovered above, their searchlights scanning the area. Soldiers were everywhere, shouting orders, trying to figure out what was happening. Elias's heart pounded. Where's our ride? Zalvera tapped her communicator. Nira, we need extraction. Now. A static-filled voice replied. Already on my way. Brace yourselves. Elias frowned. Brace for what? Boom. A sleek black ship roared through the sky, blasting Dominion soldiers with its turrets. It swooped down, skidding across the ground as the side hatch slid open. A blue-skinned pilot with sharp eyes leaned out. Move it. Elias and Zalvera didn't hesitate. They sprinted toward the ship, dodging gunfire. A Dominion soldier lunged at Elias, but he swung his rifle like a bat, knocking the enemy out cold. Zalvera leaped onto the ramp first. Elias followed, just as a Dominion war mech locked onto him with a glowing cannon. Target locked. Elias's eyes widened. Oh, come on. The mech fired. But at the last second, Nira yanked Elias inside the ship, and the ramp slammed shut. The blast hit the ground where Elias had just been, shaking the ship violently. Elias lay on the floor, breathing hard. That was close. Zalvera smirked. Too close. Nira grinned from the cockpit. Hold on. We're getting out of here. The engines roared, and the ship shot into the sky, dodging Dominion fire as it disappeared into the vastness of space. Below them, the Dominion base erupted in a massive explosion, fire and smoke rising high into the air. Elias watched from the window. That's a sight I'll never get tired of. Zalvera crossed her arms. The mission isn't over yet. Elias raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Zalvera's expression darkened. The Dominion won't stop. This was just the beginning. Elias exhaled. Something told him she was right. Elias took a step back, gripping his rifle tightly. The Dominion warrior in front of them was massive, at least 8 feet tall, his black armor covered in jagged scars. His glowing red eyes locked onto them like a predator watching its prey. Zalvera's expression darkened. That's not just any soldier. That's a Dominion juggernaut. Elias frowned. I take it that's bad. The juggernaut stepped forward, his deep voice filled with menace. You cannot escape. You cannot win. Surrender, and I may grant you a quick death. Elias smirked. Yeah, or we could just blow this place up and ruin your day. The juggernaut let out a low growl, then charge. Zalvera moved first, leaping to the side as the massive warrior swung a colossal blade down where she had been standing. Sparks flew as the metal floor cracked beneath his strength. Elias fired his rifle. 3 quick shots straight to the Juggernaut's chest. The energy bolts hit, but the armor absorbed the impact. The warrior barely flinched. "Great," Elias muttered. "Bullets don't work." Zalvera landed behind the Juggernaut and slashed at his leg with her blade. The energy-infused weapon cut through the armor, drawing dark blood. The Juggernaut roared and spun, swinging his massive arm at her. The Zalvera barely ducked in time, the force of the attack smashing into a nearby console, sending sparks flying. Elias needed a plan. Fast. He looked around the chamber, eyes darting between the power core and the energy conduits lining the walls. Then he saw it, a cluster of exposed cables running above them, high-voltage energy lines. "Zalvera, get him under those cables," Elias shouted. Zalvera didn't hesitate. She dodged another attack and struck the Juggernaut's knee, forcing him to stumble backward. She kept moving, baiting him toward the cables. Elias aimed his rifle at the thick metal supports holding the cables in place. The moment the Juggernaut stepped beneath them, Elias pulled the trigger. Crack! The supports shattered, and the heavy cables fell, sparking wildly. Electricity surged through the air, then straight into the Juggernaut. The warrior roared in agony as thousands of volts coursed through his body. His armor overloaded, energy bursting from the seams. He staggered, trying to move, but the power was too much. With one final, shuddering growl, the Juggernaut collapsed, smoke rising from his lifeless form. Elias exhaled. Well, that worked. Zalvera nodded, impressed. Quick thinking. Elias grinned. Yeah, I try. But there was no time to celebrate. Alarms blared louder now, and the floor trembled as the entire facility began lockdown procedures. Zalvera pulled out the explosive charges. "We need to set these. Now." Elias nodded. They had won the fight. But the real mission wasn't over yet. Elias drifted in and out of consciousness as Zalvera carried him through the dense jungle. His body ached, his vision blurred, but he forced himself to stay awake. He didn't trust this alien princess yet. She had saved him, but why? After what felt like hours, they reached a hidden cave entrance covered by thick vines. Zalvera moved them aside and stepped inside. The air was cool, the walls smooth, glowing blue crystals providing soft light. Elias groaned as she set him down on a stone platform. "You got a medkit or something?" Zalvera kneeled beside him, pulling out a small metallic device. "Hold still." Before he could protest, she pressed it against his chest. A warm sensation spread through his body, and the pain began to fade. His broken ribs snapped back into place, and his breathing became easier. Elias exhaled in relief. "Okay, that's impressive." Zalvera stood and crossed her arms. "Your injuries will heal in a few hours, but you should rest." Elias sat up slowly, studying her. "Why did you save me?" She hesitated for a moment before answering. "Because I need your help." Elias laughed weakly. "Figures. What do you want?" Zalvera turned away, her golden eyes glowing in the dim light. "My people are at war. The Dominion seeks to destroy us, and I am the last hope of my empire." Elias frowned. He had heard of the Dominion, a brutal alien faction that conquered and enslaved entire species. Humanity had managed to avoid war with them so far, but it was only a matter of time before that changed. "Sorry to hear that," Elias said, "but what does this have to do with me?" Zalvera clenched her fists. "The Dominion has a supreme warlord, a monster who leads their armies. I need you to kill him." Silence filled the cave. Elias stared at her, then shook his head. "You've got the wrong guy, princess. I'm a pilot, not an assassin." Zalvera turned back to him, her expression serious. "You are human. I have seen what your kind can do. Your people do not give up, even when the odds are impossible." Elias sighed. "Look, I get it. Humanity has a reputation, but I'm just one man. Even if I wanted to help, how do you expect me to kill the leader of the Dominion? Zalvera stepped closer. Because if you do not, your own people will be next. Elias stiffened. I intercepted Dominion transmissions, she continued. They plan to attack Earth. Humanity is no longer safe. Elias's mind raced. He had always known war with the Dominion was possible, but now it was real. He could walk away and try to find a way back home. But if what Salvera said was true, there might not be a home to return to. He clenched his jaw. I'm not an assassin, he repeated. But if the Dominion is coming for Earth, I won't sit back and do nothing. Salvera smiled slightly. Then we fight together. Elias exhaled, knowing there was no turning back now. The battle had already begun. Elias and Zalvera ran through the dense jungle, their footsteps light but quick. The Dominion hunters were dead, but more would come. The enemy never stopped hunting. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and alien flora. Strange creatures watched from the shadows, their glowing eyes peering through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a beast howled. Elias wiped the sweat from his forehead. Got a plan, princess, or are we just running till we drop? Zalvera didn't slow down. There is an old Zithari outpost not far from here. If it still stands, we can find weapons and transport. Great, Elias muttered. And if it's crawling with Dominion? Zalvera glanced at him. Then we fight. Elias chuckled. Figures. After an hour of running, they reached a rocky cliffside. Hidden within the stone was a large metal door, rusted but intact. Vines covered parts of it, but the Zithari symbol was still visible, a golden star surrounded by wings. Zalvera placed her hand on the panel beside the door. It flickered weakly before turning green. With a loud hiss, the door slid open, revealing a dark corridor inside. Elias followed her in, his pistol ready. Looks abandoned. Zalvera nodded. It has been for years. But if we are lucky, some systems still work. They moved deeper inside. Dust covered the walls, and broken monitors flickered weakly. Zalvera led the way to what looked like a command center. She pressed a few buttons on the main console, and the room hummed to life. Elias whistled. Nice. What are we looking for? Zalvera's fingers moved quickly over the controls. Information and weapons. A large hologram appeared in front of them, showing a map of the sector. Red markers blinked across the screen. Dominion warships. Elias's stomach tightened. That's a lot of ships. Zalvera's expression darkened. The Dominion is preparing for a full-scale invasion. Elias clenched his fists. And Earth is on their list. Zalvera turned to him. That is why I asked for your help. The Supreme Warlord is the mind behind this attack. If he falls, the Dominion will be weakened. Elias exhaled. You still want me to assassinate him? Zalvera stepped closer. I know it is not your way, but you must understand. This warlord is a monster. He does not negotiate. He does not show mercy. He will burn Earth the same way he has burned 100 other worlds. Elias looked at the hologram. He thought of Earth, his home, his people, the millions of lives that would be lost if the Dominion attacked. He looked back at Zalvera. Her golden eyes burned with determination. Elias sighed. I won't kill him in cold blood. Zalvera frowned. But I will fight, Elias continued. I'll help you stop this war, one way or another. A small smile touched Zalvera's lips. She extended her hand. Elias took it. The battle had just begun. The ship soared through the stars, leaving behind the burning wreckage of the Dominion base. Elias leaned against the wall, still catching his breath. His body ached from the battle, but a victorious smirk rested on his face. We did it, he muttered. Zalvera stood by the viewport, arms crossed. The glow of distant stars reflected in her violet eyes, but there was no relief on her face. Elias frowned. You don't look happy. What's wrong? She exhaled slowly. This was only one base, Elias. The Dominion is still out there, stronger than ever. They will come for me. And for you. Elias sighed. Yeah, I figured. He sat down, rubbing his temples. So what now? We just keep running. The Zalvera turned to face him. No, we prepare. We fight back. Elias chuckled. You really think we can take on an entire empire? She tilted her head. You don't. Elias leaned back and thought about it. He had spent years fighting battles for others. But this felt different. This wasn't just a mission. It was personal now. He looked at Salvera, the alien princess who had saved his life. She had risked everything to defy the Dominion. And so had he. A grin spread across his face. All right, princess, you got a plan. Salvera smiled for the first time that night. I always have a plan. Mira, the pilot, groaned from the cockpit. Great. Another suicide mission, huh? Elias laughed. Sounds about right. Salvera walked over to a holotable and activated a map. Planets, battle zones, and Dominion bases lit up before them. She pointed at one. There's a rebellion forming in the outer systems. They need leadership, fighters like us. Elias raised an eyebrow. You're saying we start a war? She nodded. The Dominion took everything from me. My home, my family. I won't stop until they fall. Elias studied her for a moment, then looked at the glowing map. He had spent his whole life just trying to survive, running from one fight to the next. Maybe it was time to fight for something bigger. He smirked. Well, I was getting bored anyway. Zalveret extended her hand. Then let's begin. Elias shook it. At that moment, a promise was made, not just between them, but for every world suffering under the Dominion's rule. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was war. And humanity was about to make the universe remember why no one should underestimate them. The fight had only just begun. The abandoned Zithari outpost had more than just old data. It had weapons. Elias stood in the armory, inspecting a sleek black rifle with glowing blue energy lines running along its barrel. It was lighter than any human weapon he had used, but the firepower was undeniable. He tested the grip, nodding in approval. Not bad, he muttered. As Alvera checked a different weapon, her fingers moving over the controls. Zithari weapons are designed for precision and speed. Do not waste your shots. Elias smirked. Trust me, I don't miss. Zalvera gave him a sharp look but said nothing. After gathering supplies, they returned to the command center. The holographic map still displayed the Dominion fleet, their warships circling a heavily fortified base on a nearby moon. That was their target. This is where the Supreme Warlord plans his attacks, Zalvera explained, pointing at the largest structure. If we strike fast, we can disrupt their operations before they launch the invasion. Elias crossed his arms. And how exactly do two people take down an entire war camp? Zalvera's eyes gleamed. We do not fight them head-on. We sabotage them. Elias raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. Zalvera pulled up a schematic of the Dominion base. The main power core is here, underground. If we destroy it, the entire facility will be disabled. No shields, no communications, no defenses. Elias nodded. And then we leave before the Dominion can stop us. Elias leaned against the console, thinking. The plan was dangerous, suicidal, even. But if they succeeded, they could delay the invasion long enough for humanity to prepare. I hope you're good at sneaking around, Elias said. Zalvera smirked. Better than you. Elias chuckled. We'll see about that. Hours later, Dominion war camp. The Dominion base was a towering fortress of black metal and red lights. Warships hovered above, their engines rumbling like distant thunder. Squads of armored soldiers patrolled the area, their weapons ready. Elias and Zalvera crouched behind a ridge, overlooking the facility. The night sky above was filled with alien stars, but there was no time to admire the view. Elias adjusted his rifle. "Tell me we have a way in." Zalvera pointed toward a cargo transport near the entrance. "We hitch a ride." Elias sighed. Of course, because walking through the front door would be too easy. They moved quickly, slipping through the shadows. When the transport stopped at a security checkpoint, they climbed onto its underside, pressing against the cold metal as it rolled into the base. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of oil and burning fuel. The Dominion soldiers spoke in low growls, their voices filled with menace. Elias gripped his rifle. This was it. They were deep inside enemy territory. And there was no turning back now. The Juggernaut's lifeless body still crackled with leftover electricity as Elias and Salvera moved quickly, placing explosive charges around the power core. The entire chamber was bathed in blue light from the massive energy reactor, its pulsing glow casting eerie shadows on the walls. Elias slapped a charge onto a support beam and activated the timer. "How long do we need?" Zalvera adjusted her device. 5 minutes. Enough time to escape before this place is reduced to molten scrap. Elias smirked. Sounds perfect. But as soon as he said it, the alarms blared even louder. A robotic voice echoed through the chamber. "Intudd eras DETCTED. Facility in Loxiki Durban. All units deploy." Elias sighed. Of course. Metal doors slammed shut, sealing off exits. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridors. The Dominion was coming. Zalvera finished setting the last charge. "We need a new way out." Elias scanned the room. His eyes locked onto a large maintenance tunnel across the chamber, partially hidden behind machinery. There. They sprinted toward it, but before they could reach the tunnel, the door at the far end of the chamber burst open, and a squad of Dominion soldiers stormed in. Elias swore, "We don't have time for this." The soldiers opened fire. Bright red energy bolts zipped past them, burning holes into the floor. Zalvera dove behind a metal console, pulling Elias with her just before a blast nearly hit his head. "We hold them off for 30 seconds. Then we run." Elias reloaded his rifle. 30 seconds. Easy. He popped up from cover and fired a rapid burst, taking down 2 soldiers. Zalvera moved like a shadow, throwing a blade that lodged deep into another soldier's throat. The Dominion fought fiercely, but Elias and Salvera were faster, more precise. A final shot from Elias dropped the last enemy. The chamber fell silent, except for the deep hum of the power core and the countdown timer on the explosives. 0:40. Elias wiped sweat from his forehead. "We need to go. Now." They sprinted toward the maintenance tunnel. Zalvera activated the panel, and the door slid open just as another squad of Dominion soldiers rushed into the chamber. Elias grinned and pressed the detonator early. The explosives ignited. A massive fireball erupted behind them, the shockwave throwing Dominion soldiers into the air as the power core began its meltdown. Elias and Salvera dived into the tunnel just as the chamber collapsed in flames. The heat chased them as they ran, the walls shaking violently. Pipes burst, steam hissing around them. The entire facility was dying. Elias gritted his teeth. "Remind me, was this the easy part or the hard part?" Zalvera smirked. "Both." Ahead, a faint light appeared. The exit. Freedom was close, if they could reach it in time.